Hello everyone, I am Stephen Vartkis, the director of the Ridgefield Historical Society, and I'd like to welcome you to the Ridgefield Historical Society here at 4 Sunset Lane in Ridgefield, Connecticut for the Ridgefield History Club. Today's topic is going to be Christmas memories in Ridgefield, and today's date is Tuesday, December 19th, 2023. We're recording this for the Historical Society's archive, and the Historical Society is dedicated to preserving the entire history of Ridgefield, Connecticut, from the indigenous people who lived here 10,000 years ago all the way up to the present day. And we believe that everyone has a story to tell, and we are very excited to record and preserve your memories here at the Historical Society. We invite you to get involved here as volunteers, as members and donors, and it's been a very exciting year, and we look forward to continuing the Ridgefield History Club and all our other exciting initiatives in 2024. So for today's program, I thought we would be able to share some of our memories about holiday traditions and customs here in the town of Ridgefield. I'm sure everyone has some type of memory or story from their childhood, or maybe in their later years here in Ridgefield when you had children of your own, from religious celebrations to family traditions and foods, Christmas trees and presents, lights and Santa. So I think there's a lot to share today, and we're very fortunate again to have Jack Sanders, who has written over 10 books on Ridgefield's history, in attendance to provide the historical grounding if there are any questions that come up related to different events. So with that, I think we would like to start by going around the room. If we could briefly introduce ourselves, and we'll get our names on the recording. Sally?
Yeah, I'm Sally Sanders.
Jack Sanders.
Aileen Egan,
Lynn Mullen,
Sandy Mozziello,
Pat Lagos,
Joyce Legy,
Barbara Serfilippi,
Elaine Cullinan,
Keith Russell. Pete Nichols.
Betsy Reed.
Darla Shaw.
Great, thank you all so much. Would someone like to start by sharing a Ridgefield Christmas story or memory with us today? Yes.
I just have one about school. We had a Christmas tree, and it was outside Miss O'Shea's room on the class on East Ridge. I don't remember high school, but I know all through elementary school, every Christmas there was a Christmas tree outside of Miss O'Shea's room.
In the hallway or outside in the...
It was in the hall. It was out, so you could, but it was on her, she was on the north end of the building, right across from Miss O'Hearn's room. And it was like in the back there. And there was always a Christmas tree there.
Did you decorate it? Did the kids decorate it, or did
No,
she?
I don't remember that. It was decorated. It was, I don't know if Miss O'Shea did it. It was just there. And it was there all through elementary school. And then I don't know what happened.
Well, I was telling Elaine when we were walking in, the thing that I remember about Christmases in Ridgefield, one of the big ones was the ice storm in 1973, which happened on the 16th and 17th, and it really put a damper on Christmas that year. Our power was out for a week, and we were on Olmsted Lane, which is close to the center of town. And I'm sure other people were out even longer, but it was
cold.
It was so cold.
-2 it reached. It was cold.
wow.
So what did you do for dinner and staying warm?
We had, we were living in an antique house, and we had 2 fireplaces, which we kept going, and spent most of the time praying that the house wouldn't burn down, because an 18th century house has an unlined chimney, basically. So we were just hoping that nothing leaked out of the chimney into the attic or the upstairs. We managed to keep our pipes from freezing. Our neighbors across the street had radiators explode in their 18th century house because they thought it would be good to keep the heat downstairs, so they closed the door to the upstairs and didn't let the heat go up and froze. But I can remember Dick Venus, who lived across the street from us, threatening to climb the pole and reset the breaker because the only thing that was wrong on our street was that the breaker was open, and he was about ready to climb.
Well, I remember that storm too, when I was in high school, and we just, in our neighborhood on Continental Drive, we just got our sleds out, and you're sledding on top of ice basically, and we would go down the back of Jacobson's yard in that area. We also went down Continental Drive, not to North Salem Road, just the other way. We weren't that crazy. So
I
Didn't
went
you go
down
awfully
Continental
fast?
Drive. Across North Salem.
Oh my God!
really, wow.
Oh, yeah.
But the traffic wasn't
There
there.
was no trouble. No.
Yeah, okay.
It's like playing baseball in the streets.
Yeah.
I remember sliding down the hill by the police station
Mhm.
in some good storms.
I remember ice skating down Katona Street.
I'd like to ask about food. I brought my favorite cookies, but we always hear about the Italian customs on Christmas Eve, the feast of how many fishes? Seven. And is that something that all your families did?
Not the seven
Not the
fishes.
seven.
Not the seven,
Not
seven.
the seven.
We called it stuckafish
Stuck-
pie.
yes.
Stuck
Right.
your
I
house
know,
up.
yeah, sunfish, I remember,
Right.
yeah.
It was always fish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We
we
didn't
did
eat
the
meat
seven.
on Christmas Eve.
Right.
It was always a fish dinner.
Yeah.
And
Or s-
pasta.
Pasta, spaghetti with
Pasta.
tuna fish sauce.
Yeah.
We
Uh-huh.
did.
Yeah.
I don't know, spaghetti with tuna fish sauce, and then we didn't have seven fish. We had a whitefish, shrimp, and calamar.
Right. Calamar was the big thing.
Calamar was
Squid.
squid, roasted squid
Was that a treat? I mean, was that something you didn't normally?
Yeah, that
Well,
was
just a
treat.
once a year.
Well, when we were kids, we
Calamar
didn't
was-
really care for the calamar,
No.
the squid. But,
Yeah.
as you grew older, you
You love
appreciated it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah.
I can remember, we lived upstairs and my grandmother lived downstairs, and Christmas Eve was a production. All the cooking was done in my grandmother's house. My mother and my grandmother had already made the spaghetti or the noodles. That had been done days before. My grandmother would be making the sauce. My Uncle Dino Giardini would come 2 or 3 times a day. One time he would bring the jug of red wine and he'd put it by the seat at the head of the table that where he always sat. But he'd come up 2 or 3 times a day to check what my grandmother was doing. My mother would run up and down the stairs. There was always 1 or 2 calls to Vincenzina Buccetti, who was probably arguably the best cook in Ridgefield at the time. She was family, so my grandmother would call her or my mother would call her. I don't know about what, but there was always that call, and that's what I remember. I remember more the preparation, what went into getting ready for Christmas Eve than Christmas Eve itself.
Everybody sat at the same big table, or did
Oh,
they
yeah.
have kids?
Oh, yes.
Oh,
Not
yeah.
a kids table.
Oh, no. We had a kids' table. in my family.
Yeah, we had to. As the family got bigger, when we started, it was just Aunt Jean and Uncle Dino, my grandmother, our family. We could all sit at one table, but then as the family got bigger, we had card tables. And it's a small house. It was not a big house.
And the thing was that the whole family got involved. Certain dishes like the ravioli, if you had ravioli, or if you had capliti, or if you had something else, they would all come together, the aunts and the older people, and they'd spend the whole day making them because they're tedious. And if you need a lot, it takes a lot of time to make these little things. And they would all come and get together and work on it, which was nice. Yeah.
I wanted to mention 2 Santas that I remember in town. I moved to town in 1966, and I had 2 small children, and in December, Christmas Eve, Santa arrived, the most authentic Santa. He was amazing. I had no idea who this was with bags of candy. And the next day I went to neighbors and I said, which neighbor was this? They said, that wasn't a neighbor. I said, it wasn't a real Santa. They said, no. It was Marty Canan. We had a Marty Canan house, and if you had a house built by him, he would come if you had small children at Christmas. And my husband became very inspired, and 10 years later he got a Santa suit. But what he decided to do, because he spent a lot of time at the Winter Ice Arena, whatever, he would go to the homes of the hockey players that had small kids. And then he gained fame through that and became the rec center Santa Claus. But the other Santa that I remember is Bill Dexter. Bill Dexter comes from Georgetown and has a septic business. And he is so authentic. The real hair, the real build, the real heart. And he performs as Santa everywhere, community center, Founders Hall, parties, and so on for years. In fact, if you're one of his clients for your septic tank, every year you get a Bill Dexter calendar, and they're just very clever and very nice. And I just wanted to share one story because people don't realize that he fundraises and does good for people throughout the year. So at Christmas, he took on a special day at the Branford Hospice every single year along with his wife. It was a huge event. He wanted the hospice patients to have their parents, their grandchildren, and their great-grandchildren to all come together at this wonderful facility on the ocean. And so the Founders Hall band went, a lot of volunteers. We had carpools, and he took a rowboat because Santa would come by boat to the hospice for the kids. And it went really well for years. And we had this plan, and at 12 o'clock, they would launch his boat, and he would go around the cove. And we would play for 15 minutes Christmas songs, and then after 15 minutes, we would start playing Here Comes Santa Claus, and he would come around. And it was really very different. And he would land on the beach, and the children would run down and greet him. Well, one year, 12 o'clock, they launched the boat. We played for 15 minutes. We started, Here Comes Santa Claus. We usually did it 4 or 5 times. 25 minutes. We were playing Here Comes Santa Claus. He had gotten in some sort of a riptide or something. He couldn't get around. By the time he came to the beach, he was wet, he was tired, he could barely make it up the beach, but he was still Santa. And whenever the Founders Hall band played, and we played Here Comes Santa Claus, Frank Lancaster was our moderator, he would say, and we dedicate this song to Bill Dexter and the volunteers at Branford Hospice. So I don't know if you remember any other Santas, but those are the two that I remember.
Yeah,
oh, good. We got a lot of Santa stories.
Now, I remember Charlie Coles at the Ridgefield Savings Bank. And when we were kids, that was really exciting for us. We would go up to the savings bank and visit Santa Claus. And we would get a box of candy or a stocking filled with candy. Not just a candy cane, it was candy. And that went on for quite a few years. And that was the Santa that I remember the most, was Charlie Coles.
Santa, I remember, maybe we're going to say the same thing, was Mr. Ashby, Charlie Ashby. And we'd be like in second or third grade in class, and all of a sudden you'd hear a bell coming down the hallway. And it would just... It was amazing. Here comes Santa, and he was great. I don't know if that's him in that picture.
I don't remember that.
Oh yeah,
He's in 2 of those pictures.
he is.
I remember
which
Charlie
ones, Jack?
Ashby also. He used to come to our house,
He did.
and I had one sister, and we didn't have a fireplace,
That's him
so
there.
we wondered,
Yeah.
what was going to happen. But my father had done some work for him, and every
And
Christmas
that's
he
him
used to
there
come.
too.
Yes. He, I think he worked at the Ridgefield Savings Bank. Was he an officer, Joyce?
I don't remember.
Well,
that.
he was. He worked at Ridgefield Savings Bank, and every year he'd come to the school.
Yes, see,
Come
Larry
down the
remembers
hall.
that. I don't remember
Pat
that.
remembers.
I don't know. I remember him, but I don't remember.
I
where.
remember little boxes of candy that
Yes.
they used to give out, and it used to be that ribbon candy that I
Yeah.
don't even know
All
if
the
they
great
have
candies,
that
yeah.
anymore.
Yeah, you can get
Right.
it at the Vermont Country Store.
That's funny.
Yeah,
But it
we love
reminds
it.
you of him.
It reminds
When,
me
you know,
of that.
yeah.
Whenever you see it, yeah.
Well, I have a story of a gift that I got, and I was a kid, and of course, and I guess my parents, or at least my father, had spent a lot of time Christmas Eve getting it all set up, and it was something that some of you may have gotten. And this is the head guy. The train set. Solid steel, metal.
Is that
you know.
Lionel?
Yep, this is Lionel. And it says 2018, but that's definitely not. This was made in 1957, I believe. And when I did a little research on this, and that Christmas morning, he had it set up on a piece of plywood, and it was going around and smoke coming out. And it was a lot of fun, and each year we would put it up and everything. And then when I got married and had my daughter, I would set it up and do similar. But and then 2020, when COVID hit, kids didn't come to our houses or come to the door of our houses in our neighborhood. We just had food or candy outside, in the driveway. And I set up a piece of plywood with my train set with, skeletons and things like that, pumpkins. And I had this going around, and when the families would come by, they'd like, oh, look at that. And, the kids hadn't seen anything like this before, and the parents are thinking back. And then the following year, I didn't have it set up, but the kids said, when they came around, didn't you have a train here, last year? And I said, yeah, but it still works, and it's amazing. So, a lot of fun.
Speaking of trains, I don't know if people remember or knew Gene Holcroft, and he lived on Old Sid Road, and he was very, very much into trains. And he had the most amazing setup that never moved. It was there permanently in his cellar, and every Christmas he would invite the kids in, and we would have a little kids party around his train set as well. Trains were so important at that time, Kids really looked forward to maybe not an entire set, but some sort of trains.
That's great. Does anyone else have any favorite gifts that they were given over the years? So the boys are, trains are popular with boys. What did the girls get for gifts when they were growing up?
Eileen, did you get a Ricky doll when you were little?
No, I didn't.
My younger sister was born the year that Ricky Ricardo and Lucille
Oh.
Ball had their baby, and they had Ricky dolls.
Oh,
So both my older sister and I got Ricky dolls.
we missed out.
Yeah.
What I remember for gifts were, more clothing.
Uh-huh.
You always got pajamas or things like that. I guess we got some toys, but it was clothing. Everything had to do with clothing. Anything you needed, you got that day.
Yeah.
So, But I have, I
Things
remember,
haven't changed, right, Joyce?
and I know, yeah.
Underwear?
Yeah.
Underwear?
Yeah, yeah, that's it, yeah.
So heavy.
I also remember going to a Christmas party at the Ridgefield School, the old schoolhouse.
Okay.
Because I know you're involved with fundraising, trying to restore it.
Yes.
And I remember going, and Santa was there, and we all got little presents or something. I really don't remember anything else about it, but I do remember going there for Christmas.
Oh, that's nice. Jean Ancona has a little video of a Christmas party at the Branchville Schoolhouse that he shared with us as well. So we'll have to share that with you at some point.
Yeah.
And maybe it's the same party.
Maybe in the video. I have a memory about Christmas Eve. My dad owned a grocery store on West Lane, Casamore Market.
Okay.
So Christmas Eve was, and that whole week before was crazy busy for us. We had a lot of customers who had charge accounts, and we delivered to them. And a few days before Christmas would be, and as kids we would help out. The turkeys would come in, and the turkeys would have to be weighed, and then we'd put the mark on the tag of how much, because they were going to be delivered for Christmas. And my dad was the butcher. We all worked until like 6 o'clock on Christmas Eve till the store closed to let people's last minute requests and everything. And my brother and I would stock the shelves and do whatever was needed, because that was really the busiest day of the year for my dad. And when I think about it now, and when I had children of my own, I thought to myself, how did they work till 6 o'clock at night, came home and we didn't see my grandparents until Christmas Day, throw dinner together, and then get Christmas together when we all went to bed. I mean, it was crazy. It was crazy, yeah.
That reminds me, Joyce and I worked at Allen's men's store. And believe it or not, if you went in there and you bought something for someone for Christmas, we gift wrapped it.
Wow.
Beautiful box, beautiful gift wrapping, at no charge. And we spent many hours on our feet gift wrapping for people coming in for Christmas. It was a very busy time. We worked till 6 o'clock Christmas Eve too. It was a busy time in retail.
And last minute, Christmas Eve, you sold a lot of ties. Lots of ties.
I remember working at Ridgefield High School, and of course we did Secret Santa, and our Santa was always John Suddich. He was just the most perfect. And I remember one year I said, we're going to all sit on Santa's lap one at a time. You remember this? And I'm going to take portrait pictures. I took everyone's picture on his lap at that time with the camera with no film in it. So, this was one thing, I always remembered. And then
No record.
the weather was so different then. And I remember around Christmas, I think Francis Martin had his skating party.
Yep.
I was never there when he did barrel jumping, but, I was there for the parties and the hot dogs and everything. And for the Ridgefield High School, I was always doing different things. And one of the things was we had a contest, and you'd enter for like a couple dollars, and who could guess the first snow day that would come. And we always had snow before Christmas. So right before Christmas, we would announce the winner and pass out the money for snow days before Christmas. We certainly couldn't do that anymore with the climate change.
Well, they didn't have school yesterday, so it wasn't because of snow.
That doesn't qualify as a snow day.
Okay.
No, I know.
Yeah. Well,
I have a story. I hesitate to tell it, but it's the story that I remember. My dad and my mom, they waited until Christmas Eve. The tree went up on Christmas Eve, and after everyone went to bed, there would be a row for Sandy, a row for Harry, a row for John, because he's little. There's 10 years difference between John and I, and then one for me. And one Christmas Eve, my dad came in, we called my dad Peeps. And he came in and he looked, and there was this row for each of us, and we kids had bought something for my mother. And my dad says to my mother, he didn't know I was there. My dad says to my mother, there's nothing on the tree for you. There's nothing under the tree for you. What are the kids going to say? So my mother went and took an envelope, and she wrote her name on it, Dell. My dad took $20 out of his pocket, put it in the envelope, and they put it on the tree. And the last thing my father said to my mother was, be sure to give me the $20 back.
That's great.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's great.
I do remember a couple other Christmas gifts. One was a 10-speed bicycle, and the other was a flexible flyer sled. And I almost brought that same flexible flyer sled with me today, but things happened and I didn't get it out of the attic. But it was so much fun with the sleds.
You know,
Anyone get coal in their stocking? I do.
Oh.
I don't know what for.
Sure you don't. Oh no.
I don't remember the sleds.
I still have the stocking that my Aunt Trieste had written my name on it. Yeah, I have it someplace.
It was always fun getting that stocking put on your bed, at the foot of the bed, and then you'd wake up and you'd feel it, and you go and it was like a little Christmas before Christmas.
That was to keep you in bed.
Yeah. We get Hot Wheels in there, and
If you want to go way back, I remember my father saying they didn't get Christmas gifts, they got fruit.
Really?
They had fruit. They'd wake up in the morning and there would be fruit. There'd be icicles on the windows, but there was always fruit on the mantle. That was their Christmas gift.
Well.
No gifts.
I read some letters from, now it would be in the 1880s, and it was the daughter of a Ridgefielder, and she was away at school, and she was going to be there for Christmas. She wasn't coming home, but they sent her a box of oranges.
Yeah,
That
that was it.
that was
Oranges,
the big
my
one.
father used to say. Yeah.
Simpler times.
What's that?
Simpler times.
Simpler times is right.
Did you have aunts who made things for you? I had an aunt who always made slipper socks for Christmas.
Yes.
Every Christmas.
I had a great aunt that she would knit the slipper socks.
Yep.
I still have them, Sally.
I do not.
If you want to read a really, really good story, and I was reminded of it because of the oranges. There's a story by Patricia Polacco that's called An Orange for Frankie. It's a Christmas story. You just need to read it. And it's reminiscent of everything that you're talking about. Again, An Orange for Frankie by Patricia Polacco.
Yeah. That's what they got.
One gift that I do remember was Sandy and Elaine's mother always making pasta for Christmas. She would start the week before, I guess, making it, and she would make it for all the nieces. And I know I always got it, so I was always excited about that.
That was before, was that before the machine?
I think
You know,
it
when
was
they
for
started, they had a board with a dowel, and she would roll it out,
Yes.
and then the pasta would be all over the house, on towels, on sheets, drying all over. And then it got to the point where they had the machines, and at the end, my mother had a machine with a motor on it
Right.
when she couldn't turn off, but she kept making
My mother used to
the
start with
pasta.
Cuisinart and then go to the machine as they got older.
In our neighborhood, we had Helen and Jim Nestor. Jim was, I think, active in the planning and zoning and all, and they organized all these events. Instead of flyers, I remember more going to Pound Ridge with the neighborhood around Christmas and tobogganing. I mean, everyone was on the toboggans, and we'd fall off, and that was fun. And you can't do it anymore, but we used to skate at Turtle Pond on Old Sib Road, and that's all grown in. And then they organized also Christmas caroling. We have a big loop and we would go around and Christmas carol. And those type of community things that we did back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s don't seem to be happening in communities anymore.
We ice skated at Fox Hill and at Mamonasco. And that would, we
Doesn't
had
get that
snow
cold
from
anymore.
Thanksgiving, we'd have snow, and then on St. Patrick's Day there would be daffodils. And that was our season, and we could skate at either Fox Hill or up at Mamonasco, and the ice was safe to.
I remember skating at the boys club pond too.
Oh, I don't remember, I just remember the other two.
I don't remember. I used to skate on Lake Candlewood. And the ice would get, yeah, people used to drive cars onto it, not anymore. Where did you get Christmas trees? Did you just have a woods that you went to and got
Yeah,
them?
the woods.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I remember. Where did we get our Christmas
I don't
tree?
know, because our Christmas tree went up Christmas Eve.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
so
have
we didn't
no
have it up
idea where my
before.
father got it. No, no.
I don't know.
They'd go in the woods and.
We didn't go
get
down to Limestone and buy
No,
them.
no. We didn't go by, or
Tubby
did we
kids.
spend $100 on it?
Yeah, right.
When my kids were little, we went across the street to the firehouse. Joe Young used to sell
Yes,
fireworks.
Joe Young's was later
Yeah,
on.
he did. Yes, you're right.
And actually, my father sold them at the store for a
Did
long
he?
time, until I was about 16, I think, and I don't know where we got it after that, probably Joe Young's.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was Young's, yeah.
We used to do a nice thing when we were, had started to have, were newly married and were starting to have children. There was a music teacher at Veterans Park, Sally Anyon was her name.
Oh, yeah.
And I had taught for a while at Veterans Park, and she always would get a group of us together, couples, and she would get a list from the Ridgefield VNA of shut-ins. And we would go about a week or two before Christmas and sing for them outside of their houses, and then we'd all go back to Sally's for dinner. But it was amazing. We did it for a number of years, cold, so cold some nights, and slipping and falling on the ice and everything else. But people would look forward to it, and they would be so happy when they would come, oh, you came back this year, or I was hoping you'd come back this year. It really made you feel good, really put you in the spirit.
I think another feel-good thing I remember is going to Wilton, Cannondale for the blessing of the animals, and June Havoc was alive at that time, and the animals would come all dressed up, and it was amazing. I mean, there were goats and sheep, and everyone seemed to get along. None of the animals seemed to get angered and upset, and it was always a beautiful annual event to go to for many years.
They had that at St. Stephen's for a while too.
They have that at St.
They
Stephen's?
did. I don't know if they still do now, but
Well,
I don't
Jesse,
have
we
any
used
more
to have
animals,
a living
yeah.
crash, right? In
Yeah.
front of
Right.
the church, didn't they have
Oh,
a living nativity?
I think, yeah, they did.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah. They used to have a pen out in front.
One of the things that I would do is go to midnight mass all the time. Did that happen here in Ridgefield? And are there any religious connections to Christmas that you remember with your families, performing in pageants or going to certain activities?
Pageants wouldn't have been
I guess not.
something that at St. Mary's.
Right,
No, it was just midnight mass.
right.
Yeah, it was midnight mass.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They didn't always do midnight
Huh?
mass. They didn't always do midnight mass. Did they?
No,
I can remember
kind
going
of later years.
Yeah.
to Tona with my
I remember before separation of church and state, being in a pageant at Veterans Park School, you know, Three Kings and everything. No one worried about the civil rights implications.
Getting back to Santa Claus for a minute, I just remembered a story from when my youngest son was about 3 years old, and the caboose used to have, the toy caboose used to have someone, a Santa's helper out there greeting the children. And Mike was about 3 years old, and I took him to the caboose, and he got on Santa's lap and telling Santa what he wanted and everything. And as we walked back to the car, the 3-year-old says to me, "Mom, you know, that was Tim. Tim was my stepbrother. You know, that was Tim in that costume." Here I thought we had him fooled. And then so I went into my, Santa's helpers can't be everywhere, and
Was this when Caboose was at the end of Bailey, or was it on Grove, or was it?
Where Bissell's is, right?
Yeah, where Bissell's is.
Oh, okay.
It started out on Prospect Street.
It was on
Yeah.
Prospect,
Yeah.
that was the first time.
Yeah.
Well, Prospect and Bailey.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
Right
Down
on
in
the
the
corner.
old- in the old antique, there was an
Yeah.
old antique store there, and
Yep.
the caboose started there.
That's right.
Who owned that antique store?
The Osborns owned the property from Main Street down to Bailey
They
Avenue.
owned that?
Yeah.
Was it a guy named Croc?
Yeah, it was Kratz.
Yes,
Ray
Kratz.
Kratz.
Ray Kratz was the
Yeah,
antique.
yeah.
I'm curious about decorations. I know there's this Christmas lighting ceremony in town, but when we go way back, what were decorations like in town? Was the town decorated? Would you decorate your own houses and inside?
They used to have a big,
We had a
big,
tree. Yeah, we had a tree and a wreath on the door, or something on the door.
I
there
remember
used to be a
once-
big doorway decorating contest that went on in the 30s. That there's
Oh, yeah, that happened.
from in there. And a lot of competition, private homes, businesses, which I guess Founders Hall kind of copied this year with a lighting contest. But that was very popular.
I actually remember the cemetery more than I remember the house. I remember my grandmother would always put something on, my grandmother Giardini, there was always something on the grave at St. Mary's, but I don't remember the house.
But I don't remember,
I don't remember the house.
but the cemeteries, yes.
I just remember the cemetery had to be, it was done every Christmas.
with a box or
You know, I don't remember what it was. It was either, I remember as I got older, wreaths were wired onto the grave, if they had a gravestone. But I don't remember, but I remember there was always something, some kind of greens at the cemetery.
Anyone remember the fuss about moving the creche around? It was at the community center, and then there was like a lawsuit or something, or at least a letter threatening a lawsuit, and they moved it to St. Stephen's across the, a church across the street, and then they moved to St. Mary's, because I think the Knights of Columbus put it up.
They did have their own, I know the town would go in there, but
I don't remember that.
Yeah, and then they had the diversity tree.
Yeah, I don't remember at what point the Christmas tree came out of the schools, because I had already left,
Yeah.
so I don't know if it was prior to 1960 or it was after 1960.
they used to have live animals in that. It's a Methodist.
I don't ever remember there being Christmas trees in the schools. And-
See, well then,
Yeah.
but I'm that much older than
But,
you.
well,
So I graduated in '69 from the high school, and I remember, like I said, pageants and elaborate things when I was at Veterans Park School. I don't remember them in high school, but maybe just because they did less.
Here's of our, is on our age group, so I don't know.
We always had pageants at St. Mary's in the clubhouse upstairs.
Right.
I don't know, we always did that.
Well, we always had a Christmas music when we were in elementary school, Dr. Rowe, and
Oh.
he wrote a lot of the Christmas
Right.
songs. He was really a very talented composer, as well as our music teacher.
He did it in high school too.
Yeah.
He did it in
They
high
had
school.
a little portable organ. I
Yes,
can remember as a
remember?
kid that he would put in a truck, and we'd go out on the truck singing, and he'd play the Christmas carols. And he was a very talented.
He was. And he had very poor vision, but
Right.
he composed many of the songs that we sang.
Well, think about it, that stage has become the Playhouse stage.
Yeah.
The stage that we had in high school, that all our productions were on, whether it was elementary school or high school, is now the stage that the Playhouse uses.
And they've really kept it so true to life. Too.
True to
It really
life.
looks
They have to
good,
really-
yeah.
And they say that the acoustics in there
Are
are one of the
excellent.
best that you could have, the way it was built to this day.
I think that's why people like to come here, you know, it's a smaller venue for some of these performers, but they really like the space so much.
Yeah.
Did anyone remember the wavy walls in the Veterans Park Auditorium? It's like the wood
Wavy.
walls in the auditorium are like waved. I believe it's supposed to be acoustically, you know, the thought was behind it was this was better for acoustics. No idea. It doesn't echo as much or something. I don't know.
Well, wasn't there,
I never went into Veterans Park much.
No,
No.
I just remember as a kid, you know, it was a strange thing to see.
The leader that came, Arterio,
Toscanini.
Oh, Toscanini,
Yeah, he
at
did a
the old
great
high
job.
school.
at the old high school,
And I think
yeah,
he performed at the Playhouse.
at the Playhouse,
Too.
in the old high school.
Arturo
Arturo Toscanini.
Was that the NBC orchestra? Jeff?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't remember, I mean,
I think it was back in the 40s.
yeah,
I think it had,
But
might
I
have
heard
had
people
something to do
talking
with the
about it.
war, possibly,
I
too.
think so,
Yeah.
Pat.
He came here twice
Twice?
Twice.
because his friend Samuel Shotzenoff lived on Spring Valley Road for a long time. So he did 2 concerts and they were like benefits for the library and the Boys Club, I think. I'm not sure that they were Christmas time though.
yeah, I don't know, but I remember hearing about it. I know Dante would always mention that.
But he was a big deal at that time.
It was.
Yeah.
I mean, he was very famous.
He was supposed to have had an affair with Geraldine Farrar.
That way he can.
Remember, this is being recorded.
I don't think either will sue.
Probably not.
Mrs. Davis moved into that.
Can we talk about Bob Tulipani? His picture
Yeah,
just went
I-
by
yeah.
there. He told a story about his father when he was a kid. The tree went up on Christmas Eve. They never saw the tree until they got up on Christmas morning. But his father, Julius, would collect moss during the year and store it on their back porch. And on Christmas Eve, he would put together this whole elaborate creche of hundreds of figures on this moss that he had collected. And it was, you know, a tradition they had every year. And Bob actually carried it on for his kids. And he said most of the characters were sheep, and people would send him these little figurines of sheep. And he said it took up, you know, it got larger and larger as the years went on.
And it
But
did,
still,
I mean,
yeah.
it was underneath his tree and it was coming out into the living room.
Was he still using
Yeah,
moss
remember?
then?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if that was where that tradition came from, but it was pretty neat.
Italy.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, I think.
and those trees by the town hall that we don't have anymore.
Yeah.
They were
we
so
don't have them,
beautiful.
They were.
They were, yeah.
Carnival shop.
I know.
I'd like to know what it was like in Ridgefield during the war, from 1941 to 1945, because of that.
Oh,
It was, I think, pretty
Grim?
grim, yeah, because you know, the rationing and, I don't know whether you noticed there was a recent post about, just coffee. You got an allotment of coffee that basically was 1 cup a day. And, a lot of people, 1 cup a day is not, very much coffee, but, gasoline, tires, everything, it was sugar.
Yeah, sugar.
People would save their fat, every bit of fat, and turn it in and get paid.
I remember seeing films and pictures of kids bringing scraps of metal
Yeah.
No,
to
right.
Scrap drives were
Yeah.
big, and a lot of antique things in town
right.
were lost to scrap drives.
Sure.
People just gave them to the war effort.
Yeah.
And,
Jack, wasn't the rationing board down at the garden school? I think I
Yeah,
remember going
that was one
to
of the
look
places
for the
that- yeah.
rationing board or rationing board
Yeah.
and they're getting stamps.
There's a question that I always wondered. During the Second World War, the Japanese were interned. There were a lot of Italians living in Ridgefield. The Italians fought on the side of the Axis.
Yeah, they
Was there any blowback, I guess?
The
against-
Italian-American Club was almost immediately issuing statements of support for the United States when the war broke out. And I don't remember seeing any or hearing it about any
Yeah, I just,
that kind of prejudice against the Italian community in town because of what was going on in Europe.
There was a little bit, like they weren't allowed to have radios.
Radios, yeah. I remember one of the
Italians?
Tulipani brothers talking about that.
Oh.
Yeah.
I don't know, it was the police came around, but somebody came and confiscated
They
the
also had
family's
to have
radio,
papers.
or made sure they didn't have a radio or
But
something.
wasn't Ridgefield half Italian?
Well, Germans
Yeah.
also
Yeah.
had
Yeah,
that.
Germans also, I mean, a lot of the Italians had sons and daughters in the war, yet they were considered, you know,
Suspect. Yeah.
Yeah. Did they do that to the Germans too?
Yes.
Not mine.
Yeah.
I do,
Squeaky floors.
Well, I think the native ones that were born in Germany.
Oh, okay.
right,
I
right,
think there was some anti-German sentiment
yeah.
at one point. But most of the Italians escaped because they knew what Mussolini was like. I remember my grandfather saying that he knew, and that's why they wanted to come here. So,
my dad worked in Rebestis during the war from 1941 to 1945, and the one thing he said was, they used to go down Branchville Road, whoever was in the car with them, they coasted the whole way down Branchville Road so they could save gas. I don't know whose car it was, but he told me they coasted all the way down to save gas. So that's one war story.
Who was the person that had the bus line that
Oh,
went
yeah.
from
That was-
Ridgefield down to Bridgeport?
That was
And-
a Carboni, or it started out,
Oh, was it Carboni?
I think it was, it started out in Bianchi, I think.
Yeah, I don't know. I
They
just
went
know
to
my dad, there was a
Bridgeport.
car full of men.
my father too had a car full
Had-
of people.
One or two or three buses
Yeah.
that brought Ridgefield people to the factories in Bridgeport to work every day.
A lot of them were women.
On that bus. No, I never heard that.
Did you never heard that?
I just know the other thing, my mother used to talk to the ABC girls because they wanted to know what it was like living during the war for their history class and living during the Depression. And my mother said there was, even though there was rationing, for them they had gardens, they had put away fruit and vegetables, they had done that. They had chickens and rabbits, so they had eggs and food.
And cows, they had
And
milk.
They as long as they had flour, they could make pasta. So while other people were suffering, even though there was want, they didn't have the kind of suffering that other people had because of the life that they lived.
Right.
It was tougher in the cities than it was
Yeah.
out here.
Yeah.
Yes.
That picture was 1945, so it's just after the war ended, and that was Charlie Ashby and the sleigh.
Right
I-
in front of what's now Ridgefield Hardware, but before Ridgefield Hardware moved across the street to where it is now. That picture was.
I just like the idea of everybody
Yeah. Finally the war's
celebrating.
over.
Well, you were speaking of Ridgeberry Road, or, the slope, and I think Charles Pope lived there, and I remember that we would go to Christmas concerts with the Charles Pope choir at that
Choristers.
time. They were very well known, and we look forward to that.
Bridgeberry Road, where you met one car a week. It's not
Yeah.
a highway like it
Yeah.
is today.
It's almost like 84 today. Yeah, you're right, Pat.
Same road.
Do we know who that is, Jack?
Is that the Lynchman?
I guess we have it at home, I can't
Yeah.
remember. Isn't that Harvey Tanton?
Yeah, that's lighting the Christmas
Yeah.
lights.
And the E.P. Duttons lived on
What's that?
High Ridge, and this is his catalog.
Oh.
I love that happy little kid there.
I love the kid crying.
Yeah.
That's the one.
But this
He
is
wasn't happy.
there's the post
1945.
office behind.
Right.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, we'd have to look
Yeah.
at that really
Yeah.
carefully to see
Well, I
who
was
those
only
people.
the end of the war.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
We're only three or four.
Three or four.
They are.
So were those Christmas trees just brought in and put up for Christmas? Because the big,
I think they were growing there.
They grew there at the
Yeah.
time. This
Yeah.
was in the 60s.
because the big,
Yeah.
regular trees are
They were-
on
they're
the
in a
outside
different
of them.
position. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm curious, did anyone have any family traditions of going shopping in the big cities, either Danbury or New York City, to look at decorations or going to the big department stores?
You could take a bus from Ridgefield to Danbury. There was a Flying Eagle
Really?
and a Greyhound bus that would go to Danbury.
And to New York.
New York.
Went to
Yeah.
New York.
They pick you up in
Stop
front
at
of
front
town hall.
squashes.
Yeah, squashes. Yeah.
I used to go to New York City with my mother for Christmas. We take the train. We take the train from Branchville down to the city, and go to FAO Schwartz, Bloomingdale's, and big stores.
My husband loved the Rockettes even as a young boy. We used to go to the Christmas show, yeah.
Never know.
He still loves that. The same show. Hasn't changed.
Jack was saying, the community center,
Used to run
Oh, yes, the bus.
buses to the
Yeah.
city at Christmas.
That was
On
fun.
Wednesday.
Yeah.
Wednesdays.
Wednesday for the shows. Or shopping.
Oh, I remember
Yeah.
that.
Shopping
Yeah.
trips.
Years went on that.
Actually, I took that a few times.
Yeah. And the one tradition that I noticed was gone this year, and it's probably been gone for a while, the Keeler Tavern's,
the
Christmas
luncheon.
luncheons, which used to be such a big deal.
Right.
Did you all go to that?
Yes.
Yeah, we went, I can remember going with my mother when it was still in the actual tavern, and you had
Oh,
soup and
wow.
sandwiches.
Soup and
yeah.
sandwich.
Made
Yeah.
by the volunteers.
Made
Right.
They had pea soup or bean soup.
Yeah.
They're- I talked to somebody there the other night, Cheryl Crow, and they're thinking maybe of going back to that, because everybody loves it, with just the sandwiches and the soup.
Yeah.
And everybody's wants that again.
Yeah.
And they had some kind of candlelight
They're thinking
thing.
about it, so hopefully
That would be nice.
they'll do it. They
That
will.
would be great to bring that back.
Yes.
What was the candlelight thing that they did at the tavern at Christmas time? Candlelight tours or?
Yeah.
They
I
may
think it's
still
still
do
going
that,
on, isn't it?
but that may be New Year's.
I think they're still doing it on
You guys belong
at
to
the holidays, right?
No,
Yeah.
New
But I
Year's is
don't
it?
remember.
I don't either.
Yeah.
But they used to do it with candles, but now they have
Torches.
to, for fire.
Little electric
they
candle.
have to have
Lanterns,
electric,
yeah.
electric lanterns.
Okay. I think this is a good place to end for today. Thank you so much for joining us and sharing your Christmas memories. It was wonderful to hear all these great stories. And on behalf of everyone here at the Historical Society, I want to wish you all a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And mark your calendars for our next meeting, Tuesday, January 16th, 2024. Topic to be determined, but we'll be in this same space, and we'll pick another topic to talk about in Ridgefield's history. So thank you all so much for making this a great year for us.
Merry Christmas.
The video came out very